The Galaxy Empire believed the war was over. They believed humanity had fallen. Their warships hung above Earth like silent monsters, black metal giants blocking the sun. The planet below was scarred. Cities were dust, oceans burned, and skies were filled with ash. The alien commanders looked down with pride. They thought they had won. The Empire's soldiers filled the ruins, walking through broken streets, their banners raised high. They laughed at the silence. They mocked the empty homes they called humans weak, stubborn creatures who had wasted their lives in a hopeless fight. They said no species could rise again after such defeat. The humans were finished, but in the shadows, in the quiet corners of the destroyed world, whispers remained. Whispers of a diplomat who had not broken, a man who had been captured but not silenced. The aliens brought him to their Grand Council ship, a fortress of steel floating above Earth. They wanted a show. They wanted him to kneel. They wanted the last human voice to beg for mercy. The diplomat walked slowly into the chamber, his clothes torn, his face covered in dust and blood, but his eyes were steady, his back straight. The hall was filled with alien lords, their bodies tall and strange, their armor shining. They looked down at him as if he were an insect. The Emperor himself sat on a golden throne of fire and crystal. He leaned forward and spoke in a deep voice. "Your kind is finished, human," the Emperor said, his voice echoing across the hall. "Your fleets are ash, your armies are dust. Your people are nothing. Surrender what remains and your death will be remembered with some honor." The council laughed, their voices sharp and cruel. They expected fear. They expected silence, but the diplomat only smiled. The smile of a man who knew something they did not. He took a slow breath and the hall grew quiet. He whispered, not shouting, not screaming, but whispering, his voice soft yet cutting through the silence. "The only rule that matters is not written in your books." The aliens paused. Their laughter stopped. Their golden eyes turned cold. Some leaned forward as if to catch his words. Others frowned in confusion. What rule did this human mean? What secret was he hiding? The Emperor slammed his hand against the throne. Sparks of energy flashed. "You dare speak riddles? Insect," he roared. "Your world burns, your fleets are broken. There are no rules left but ours." But the diplomat only stood still, his chains heavy around his wrists, his eyes sharp. His whisper had already done its work. The room was no longer filled with pride. It was filled with unease. Something unseen had been planted in their hearts. Outside, the Empire's warships floated in orbit, their cannons glowing, their soldiers celebrating. They thought the war was over. But deep inside the ruined planet, hidden below the oceans and mountains, signals moved through the dark, silent machines began to wake. Old codes flickered in the dust. The diplomat's whisper reached beyond the chamber, carried by rumor, carried by fear among the alien soldiers in the streets, among the guards in the warships. They spoke to each other. "The only rule that matters," they repeated. What did he mean? Their voices shook with doubt. The Emperor's council argued. Some demanded the human be executed at once. Others warned that his words could spread like fire, but the Emperor waved them to silence. He stared at the human diplomat, his sharp teeth showing in anger, but also in fear. The diplomat lowered his head, his voice still calm. "You think we are finished? But you do not understand humans. We do not end when you expect us to end. We do not break when you expect us to break. There is always one more breath, one more step, one more fight." The aliens shifted in their seats, unease growing like a storm. They had crushed species before. They had burned worlds before, but never had they seen such defiance and defeat. Never had they felt such chill from a whisper. Outside the chamber, alarms began to flicker in the warships. Strange signals were detected from the far edges of the solar system, faint but real. Patrol officers reported movement. Unknown crafts, perhaps human, perhaps something else. The reports were dismissed at first, but unease spread. The diplomat smiled once more. A slow smile filled with quiet fire. He whispered again, his voice like a secret knife. "The only rule that matters is humanity never stops." The Emperor stood in fury, his eyes blazing, his voice shaking the hall. "You are nothing but dust," he shouted. But deep inside, for the first time in centuries, the Emperor felt a shadow of doubt. The chamber was silent. The warships above Earth hummed. The soldiers in the ruins looked to the dark skies, waiting, and somewhere far beyond the stars, the last human fleet stirred in the void, their engines waking, their hearts burning. Their war not yet over. The Galaxy Empire thought they had won, but the whisper of one human had planted fear in their hearts. a fear that would soon grow into fire, a fear that would remind them of the only rule that mattered. Humanity always returns. The Galaxy Empire had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Their fleet stretched across hundreds of worlds. Their banners flew over every system they touched. When they marched into battle, no army could stand. Their dreadnoughts were the size of cities. Their soldiers carried weapons that could tear mountains apart. They believed themselves unbreakable. When they found Earth, they expected another easy conquest. They saw humanity as nothing more than another primitive race, clever but fragile, loud but weak. Yet humans had not fallen as quickly as the Empire had hoped. They fought with a fury that surprised even the oldest alien generals. Cities became fortresses, oceans became battlefields, skies burned with fire. Every street was defended, every home turned into a bunker. The war dragged longer than the Empire had planned. Longer than any conquest before. Every human death was paid for with alien blood. Every city that fell took fleets to destroy. Even when outnumbered, even when surrounded, humans did not bow. They fought until nothing was left. But eventually numbers won. The Empire drowned Earth in fire. Their fleets rained destruction from orbit. Their soldiers swept through what remained. And when the smoke cleared, they believed humanity had finally broken. The Alien Council held a great celebration. Their halls filled with music that echoed like thunder. Their leaders drank victory wine. Their voices roared across the stars. They told every subject world that humanity was defeated, that no species could resist the Empire. They declared it the final lesson of war. Yet even as they celebrated, unease grew. Whispers reached the throne. Whispers of strange words spoken by human prisoners. Whispers of a rule that did not exist in the Empire's books. The soldiers who guarded the human diplomat swore he had whispered something strange, something dangerous. The council gathered again. Alien lords with scales, claws, and wings. Some with eyes like burning suns. Some with voices that cracked like stone. They spoke of the human words, the only rule that matters. One of them repeated with a hiss. "What does it mean?" The Emperor rose, tall and draped in golden armor, his voice like fire. "It means nothing. It is a trick. A final attempt of a broken species to make themselves feared. They are dust, they are finished, there is no rule but ours." But not all agreed. Some lords remembered how humans had fought, how even in defeat they smiled, how even when captured they whispered strange things. Some feared it was not just words, they feared it was truth. In the streets of conquered Earth, alien soldiers mocked the ruins. They shouted their victory, but at night, when the stars burned bright and the fires of war cooled, they heard prisoners whispering, "Only one rule." Over and over again they did not scream it. They whispered it like a secret, soft but sharp. It spread from mouth to mouth, cell to cell, until the guards themselves began to feel unease. One alien officer reported to his commander, "They whisper when they sleep. They whisper when they bleed. It is like a spell, it spreads. I fear it will break our soldiers' minds." His commander struck him in anger, calling him weak. But in the officer's eyes, fear remained. The Empire had won wars before. They had crushed rebellions before, but never had they seen this. Never had they seen prisoners smile in chains. Never had they seen whispers turn into weapons. Far away in the cold of space, the last human fleet drifted in silence. Damaged ships, broken hulls, wounded crews, but not destroyed. Never destroyed. Among them, a young commander rose, his voice filled with fire. He remembered the diplomat's words. He believed in the rule. He spoke to the captains of the scattered ships. "The Empire thinks we are finished. They think Earth is dead, but they do not understand. Humans are not finished until the last breath is gone. We still breathe, we still fight," the captains argued. Some said it was suicide. Some said surrender was the only way to live, but the young commander refused. His eyes burned with the same fire that had carried humans through every battle. "We are not finished," he said. "We have the rule." They began to gather, small ships moving through shadows, avoiding patrols, hiding in asteroid fields, broken hulls patched together with whatever they could find. Their weapons old, their shields weak, but their spirits alive. The Empire believed their victory was complete, but across their vast armies a seed of doubt grew. It spread from soldier to soldier, from officer to officer. The whispers of the human rule became a ghost in their minds, a shadow they could not kill. The Emperor sat upon his throne of crystal and flame. He remembered the human's whisper. It gnawed at him. It echoed in the silence of the night. "The only rule that matters," he muttered to himself. What rule, what trick? But deep inside, for the first time, the Emperor wondered if the war was not truly over. In the darkness of the void, The last human fleet turned its eyes toward the stars, waiting, watching, ready, and in the heart of the Empire itself, fear had begun to take root, a fear born not from weapons, not from fleets, but from a single whisper. The Galaxy Empire thought they had erased humanity, but the memory of one rule, one whisper spread like fire, unseen, unstoppable, waiting to ignite the galaxy in ways the Empire could not yet imagine. The last human fleet drifted in the dark, scattered across the void like broken bones of a giant. The ships were scarred, their armor torn, their engines coughing smoke into space. Some had no weapons left. Some had only a handful of crew, but still they moved. Still they breathed. Still they lived. The survivors carried stories of Earth, stories of fire raining from the sky, of cities turned to ash, of oceans boiling. They carried anger, they carried grief, but above all they carried something else, a whisper, the whisper of the diplomat's words, the whisper of a rule that the Empire did not understand. The young commander stood on the bridge of a battered cruiser, his uniform scorched, his face marked with cuts, but his eyes alive. He looked at the stars and spoke to his officers. The Empire believes we are dust, but dust can still burn if fire touches it. We are not finished. We will not be finished until the last ship falls. His voice echoed in the broken ship, and the crew straightened. One of his captains argued, an older man with gray in his beard. Our ships are too weak, our weapons too few. We cannot stand against dreadnoughts the size of cities. To fight now is to die. The young commander shook his head. We are already dead in their eyes, but we are not dead in truth. Death only comes when we surrender. We have not surrendered. His words spread from ship to ship, through broken radios, through weak signals, through the silence of space. Every surviving captain heard them. Every wounded crewman listened. Many were afraid, many doubted, but none could deny the fire inside the young commander's voice. The fleet began to gather, small groups of ships hiding in asteroid fields, broken frigates joining with scarred destroyers, carriers with empty launch bays drifting into formation. One by one they came, drawn not by orders but by belief. They came because they remembered the rule, the whisper, the promise that humanity was never finished. On one ship a mechanic worked alone in a cold engine room, his hands black with oil, his lungs heavy with smoke. He whispered to himself as he fixed a broken core. Only one rule, he said. Only one rule. And the words gave him strength to keep going. On another ship, a nurse held the hand of a dying soldier. The soldier's eyes dim, his breath weak, but his lips moved. Only one rule, he whispered before the light faded. The nurse closed his eyes and repeated the words, her voice steady. The young commander looked at the broken fleet and made a choice. We cannot fight them in the open. We cannot win with strength. We will win with fire they cannot see. We will strike where they are blind. We will remind them that humanity does not bow. He ordered the fleet into silence. No transmissions, no signals, only whispers between captains. They became ghosts in the stars, slipping through patrol lines, vanishing in debris fields, reappearing where least expected. The Empire's scouts reported strange shadows, flickers of human ships that should not exist. They chased but found nothing. They fired into the dark but hit only rocks. Unease grew in the hearts of the alien commanders. They had crushed Earth, yet somehow humans still moved, still breathed. The young commander's first strike was small. A single patrol fleet of the Empire, 10 ships armed and ready. They did not expect resistance, they did not expect shadows. The humans appeared from behind an asteroid belt, their engines screaming, their weapons firing. The battle was quick. The Empire laughed at first, but laughter turned to panic. The human ships darted like knives, their movements reckless, their strikes desperate but clever. They hit weak points, they used debris as cover. They turned asteroids into weapons. In minutes, half the alien patrol was burning. The surviving aliens fled, their commanders shouting in fear. They are supposed to be finished, one cried. How are they still fighting? The patrol escaped. But the damage was done. The whispers spread through the Empire's fleets. The humans were still alive. The humans still fought. The young commander watched the wreckage burn, his crew cheering with tired voices. He did not smile. His eyes were fixed on the stars. This is only the beginning, he said. We are not here to win a battle. We are here to remind them of the rule. In the council chambers of the Empire, the lords argued again. Some demanded the extermination of every human prisoner. Others warned that such an act would only make the whispers stronger. The Emperor roared for silence, his voice shaking the walls. But even he felt the shadow of doubt. The diplomat, still in chains, sat quietly in his cell aboard the Emperor's ship. He heard the news of the patrol's destruction. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "The only rule that matters has already begun." Back in the void, the human fleet gathered again. Small victories gave them strength. Fear turned into fire. Whispers turned into roars. They were not many. They were not strong. But they were alive, and that alone was enough. The Galaxy Empire thought the humans had been erased. But in the darkness of the stars, the last fleet stirred, and the rule whispered by one man grew into the heartbeat of a people. A rule that could not be silenced. A rule that would burn through the galaxy. Humanity never stops. Inside the vast throne world of the Galaxy Empire, victory still echoed through the golden halls. Banners of conquered worlds hung like trophies. Alien lords feasted and laughed, their voices booming like thunder across chambers built of crystal and flame. Yet beneath the surface of this triumph, something small and dangerous had begun to spread, a whisper. At first it was nothing, just human prisoners muttering words in their dark cells. Guards thought it was madness, some called it stubborn pride. But the whispers did not stop. Day after day, night after night, they grew louder, not in volume but in number. Every prisoner spoke it, every survivor repeated it. 3 words that carried like fire. Only one rule. Alien soldiers stationed on Earth began reporting strange behavior. Humans in chains smiling. Humans beaten and broken still whispering the same phrase. The soldiers could not explain it. Some said it made them uneasy. Some said it made them dream strange dreams. One soldier admitted to his captain that the words echoed in his head even when he tried to sleep. The captain struck him and told him to forget. But in his own heart he also feared. For even he had begun to repeat the words without thinking. The Council of the Empire gathered once more. Great lords of fire, steel, and shadow. Their voices filling the chamber. "It is poison," one declared, his claws slamming against the table. "This whisper spreads like a disease. It weakens our soldiers. It fills them with doubt," another hissed. "They are humans. They are broken. What can words do against fleets and armies?" But no one could deny the unease. The Emperor sat silent, his golden eyes burning. He remembered the human diplomat's whisper, his calm smile, his voice soft yet sharp. "The only rule that matters is not written in your books." The words had stayed with him, haunting his thoughts even as he roared for victory. At that very moment, the diplomat sat in chains deep within the throne ship. His body weak, but his spirit unbroken. A guard asked him once, "What rule do you speak of, human? Why do your people whisper?" The diplomat raised his head slowly and answered, "Because rules written in books can be broken. Rules carved in stone can be forgotten. But the only rule that matters lives in the blood. In the breath and the fire of survival, you cannot erase it. You cannot cage it." The guard said nothing. But when he left the cell, he whispered the words to himself, not knowing why. Not knowing how, but feeling them settle deep inside. Meanwhile, deep under Earth's oceans, where alien scanners never searched, ancient human warships began to wake. Ships that had been hidden long before the war began. Silent giants buried in the dark. Their hulls covered in coral. Their engines silent for decades, but still intact. Still waiting. Engineers who had survived in secret moved through the flooded chambers, activating cores, rerouting power, whispering the same words as they worked. In the mountains and underground bunkers, other survivors stirred, repairing weapons, sending coded signals, waiting for the call. Humanity was not finished. They had simply gone quiet. The Empire did not see it, blinded by pride. They believed whispers were nothing. But whispers had already become sparks. Sparks that would soon become fire, across the galaxy. Alien officers began reporting small rebellions. Not just from humans, but from other conquered species. Species who had heard the human whispers and repeated them. "Only one rule," they said in their own tongues. And for the first time in centuries, the foundations of the Empire shook. The Emperor called for silence in his council. His voice thundered through the chamber. "Enough of this nonsense. Destroy the prisoners. Burn their whispers, erase their voices." But even as he gave the order, hesitation filled the room. For if whispers could spread so far, what would happen if their deaths gave the whispers more power? The diplomat, still in chains, smiled in the darkness of his cell. He felt the shift, he felt the fear. He whispered once more, his voice barely audible. "You built your empire on fear, but fear is weak. Humans build something stronger, something you cannot see. And that is why you will never win. In the void, the last fleet of humanity stirred once more. Captains who had lost families, crews who had lost homes, listened to the young commander's voice. The Empire believes words are nothing. They believe power is in weapons, but they are wrong. Words move hearts, words build fire, and we will be the fire. They began preparing for something greater. Not just small raids, but a strike that would echo across the stars. A strike to show the Empire that whispers could burn. Back in the throne world, the Emperor walked alone through his golden halls. But the silence pressed against him, for even he could hear it now. Even in the quiet, the whisper followed him. Only one rule. He turned sharply, thinking someone was behind him. But the hall was empty. He roared in anger. Yet in his roar there was fear. For he realized the truth. The war was not over. Humanity was not finished. Their whispers were alive. Their whispers were weapons, and soon, the Empire would learn that the only rule that mattered was not theirs. Above the ruined earth, the alien fleet still floated, their cannons glowing, their shadows vast. But beneath the oceans and mountains, engines roared to life, and far beyond the stars, the human fleet sharpened its blades, waiting for the moment to strike. The Galaxy Empire thought they had won, but the whisper had already spread, unseen and unstoppable. A storm waiting to break, and when it did, the galaxy itself would tremble. The void was quiet, but it was not empty. In the darkness beyond the Empire's patrol lines, the last human fleet moved like ghosts. Engines dim, weapons silent, their hulls scarred but alive. Every ship carried survivors who had lost everything, yet none had lost their fire. The young commander stood on the bridge of his battered cruiser, his eyes fixed on the endless black. He knew the time had come. Today we strike, he said, his voice steady but sharp. The Empire believes we are broken. They believe whispers cannot hurt them. Let us show them what whispers can do when carried by fire. The crew listened, their faces pale and tired, but their hearts steady. The mechanic in the engine bay whispered the words to himself. The nurse in the med bay whispered them to the wounded. Pilots strapped into their cockpits whispered them like prayers. Only one rule. Across the fleet, captains exchanged short-coded signals. No speeches, no long commands, only the plan. Silence was their ally. Shadows were their shields. They had chosen their target. A patrol line of Empire warships near the edge of a dead star. 10 ships armed with heavy cannons, guarding nothing, expecting nothing. The humans emerged from the dark like knives, their ships small and fast, their engines flaring with sudden life. The Empire's warships roared alarms. Their captains laughed at first. More vermin, one said. They come to die. But their laughter was cut short. The first human strike was reckless, desperate, and brilliant. They flung debris into the enemy's path, turning asteroids into weapons, spinning chunks of frozen rock at impossible speeds. Alien shields shattered under the storm. Ships cracked, explosions tore through their lines. Then came the human fighters, old, battered, patched with scavenged metal but flown with fury. They darted between massive alien cruisers, striking engines, cutting through weapon bays, a swarm of sparks against giants of steel. The aliens fired blindly. Their cannons lit the void, but they hit more of their own than the enemy. The young commander's ship led the charge, his voice calm even as fire licked across his hull. Hit them where they are blind. Strike fast, vanish faster, he ordered, and the humans obeyed. One ship sacrificed itself to cripple a dreadnought's engine. Another used its dying engines to ram a cruiser. Explosions bloomed like stars across the dark. The Empire had the numbers, they had the firepower, but they did not have the heart. The humans fought with something the aliens could not understand, something born not of orders but of survival, of the rule that had begun as a whisper. By the end of the battle, half the alien patrol burned in the void, wreckage drifting like dead giants. The rest fled, limping, broken, carrying with them the story of what had happened. In the aftermath, the human fleet gathered again, their ships damaged, their crews scarred, but their spirits alive. They had proven something, not only to themselves but to the galaxy. They were not finished. They were not gone. The young commander looked at the wreckage and spoke softly. This is not victory. This is a reminder. The Empire will know now. The Empire will fear. They will learn the rule. Back on the throne ship of the Empire, the news arrived. The council roared in anger. Alien lords slammed claws against the table. How can this be? One shouted. We crushed them. We burned their world, another snarled. How can they still fight? The Emperor rose, his golden armor glowing, his eyes filled with fury. Because they do not understand they are finished, he growled. But deep in his heart he knew the truth. They fought because of the words, because of the whisper. In his chains, the diplomat smiled when he heard the news. Guards rushed to silence him, but he whispered anyway. The only rule that matters: never corner humanity. His voice soft but heavy. The guards trembled, though they did not know why. Meanwhile, across the stars, rumors spread. The humans were still alive. They had struck back. Whispers carried on trade routes, on smuggler ships. Even in the halls of conquered worlds, other species listened. Other species repeated the words. Only one rule: the Empire sent more patrols. Heavier fleets, but every time shadows struck from the dark. Humans appeared, hit, vanished. Every battle cost the Empire more than it cost the survivors. Whispers became fear. Fear became cracks in the Empire's armor. The young commander stood again before his fleet. Scarred but burning, "We cannot win by strength," he told them. "But we can win by memory. We can win by making them fear us. We will remind them in every strike and every whisper that humanity never stops," the crew roared. Not with joy, but with fire, for they understood. Their fight was not for victory, not yet. Their fight was to turn a whisper into a storm. The Galaxy Empire thought humans were finished. But in the silence of the void, in the fire of battle, the rule was spoken again and again, until it became more than words, it became truth. And truth was a weapon even greater than fleets. The only rule that mattered had been written in fire that day, and the galaxy had only begun to see its light. The Empire had grown used to victory. Every world they touched had fallen. Every species they fought had bent the knee. But humanity was different. Even in ruins, even in chains, they would not bow. Their whispers carried farther than fire, their defiance sharper than steel, and now, in the aftermath of the surprise strikes, the whispers had awakened something far older than the war itself. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, where alien scanners could not reach, colossal shapes stirred in the darkness. Warships built in secret before the fall, relics of a desperate plan, their hulls encrusted with stone and coral, their engines silent for decades, but not dead. Human engineers, descendants of hidden colonies, had returned to the ocean depths. They swam through broken tunnels, repaired flooded chambers, and lit the cores once more. The machines groaned as power returned, ancient reactors humming, weapons older than the Empire itself sparking to life. The ocean boiled around them as the great ships rose slowly from the abyss, forgotten titans returning to the war above the surface. Alien patrols watched in shock as waves split open, and towers of steel burst upward. One scout ship transmitted frantic reports. Unknown human vessels emerging, massive ancient designs impossible. And then silence. A beam of white fire split the ship in two. Far away in the void, the young commander of the last fleet received the signal. His heart raced as he saw the transmission. Earth had not been silent, Earth had been waiting. "We are not the last," he whispered, his crew staring in disbelief as the images of rising warships filled their screens. But the oceans were not the only place holding secrets. In deserts and mountains and hidden bunkers across the planet, vaults opened, long-forgotten hangars stirred. Drones and machines long thought lost began to awaken. Humanity had prepared for the day when the Empire would come. And though Earth had burned, the traps they had built remained. The Empire was not blind to this. Their commanders screamed in anger, demanding the destruction of every hidden base. Their fleets swarmed Earth once more, raining fire into the oceans, trying to drown the titans before they rose fully. But the ships were too many, too strong. Their ancient shields withstood the bombardment. Their cannons tore through the waves of invaders. One alien general, old and scarred, spoke in private to the Emperor. "They are not like the others, Majesty. They prepared for death but also for return. They are not finished." But the Emperor silenced him with rage. "They are vermin, nothing more. I will crush them with my own hand." Yet even as he roared, doubt coiled in his chest. In his chains, the diplomat listened to the thunder of alarms ringing through the throne ship. Guards rushed past his cell, shouting of rebellions, of hidden weapons, of fleets awakening. He smiled through the blood on his lips, whispering again, "The only rule that matters. We never stop." The young commander rallied his fleet, sending encrypted signals toward Earth. "Join us," he called. "We rise together. From ocean and from void we rise." His ships changed course, converging with the titans of Earth. Broken vessels beside ancient giants, together forming a new fleet. Their first joint strike came swift and merciless. The Empire had positioned a line of heavy dreadnoughts to blockade Earth, ships larger than mountains armed with weapons to crack moons. but the humans struck with fire from above and below, the last fleet darting between the dreadnoughts like wasps, while the ancient warships tore into their sides with beams that split armor like glass. The void became fire. Alien screams filled the comms. One dreadnought after another fell. Hulks drifting into silence, the blockade shattered. The victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Whispers raced faster than light. Species long crushed by the Empire heard the stories. Some in disbelief, others in hope. The humans were not finished. The humans had returned. The Council of the Empire trembled with rage. Their lords shouted over each other, demanding extermination, demanding fire to erase Earth forever. But in their voices was fear. For the longer they shouted, the louder the whispers became. The Emperor himself rose, his voice breaking the storm. No more whispers, no more shadows. I will lead the fleet. I will burn their world until nothing remains, his words thundered. But his eyes betrayed doubt. The diplomat, still in his chains, laughed quietly when he heard the decree, his voice soft but cutting. Yes, come to Earth, come to where it began, and learn the rule written in blood. Meanwhile, in the ruins of Earth's cities, survivors gathered, their eyes wide as they watched titans rise from the seas, warships stretching into the sky, their cannons glowing, their engines screaming. They wept not in sorrow but in fire. They wept because they knew the fight was not lost. The young commander stood on the bridge, his fleet beside the titans, his voice strong. We are not ghosts anymore. We are fire. We will show them what it means to corner humanity. We will show them the only rule. The Empire had believed their victory complete, but the shadows of the past had returned. The weapons of old had awakened, and with them humanity's fury. The galaxy trembled, for the humans had turned whispers into fire and fire into fleets, and soon, even the Emperor would learn that no throne, no empire, no army could erase the only rule that mattered. Humanity never stops. The galaxy had never seen such fire. Stars themselves seemed to tremble as two forces moved toward each other. The Galaxy Empire, vast and arrogant, gathering its dreadnoughts and flagships under the personal command of the Emperor, and humanity, scarred and broken but burning brighter with every breath. Their last fleet now joined with the Titans risen from Earth's oceans. The Emperor's flagship was a monster of metal, its hull plated in gold and obsidian. Cannons the size of towers glowing with energy. Banners of 1,000 conquered worlds painted across its sides. It was not just a ship. It was a symbol of power, a floating throne meant to remind the galaxy who ruled. The Emperor stood upon its bridge, his eyes sharp and cold, his voice steady even as unease gnawed at him. They are vermin, they will die. I will crush them myself. But across the stars the human fleet gathered. The young commander standing on the bridge of his battered cruiser, dwarfed by the ancient titans beside him. Yet his voice carried with the weight of 1,000 worlds. Today we fight not to win, but to show them the rule. They think their empire is eternal. But empires crumble, whispers do not. Today we strike. Today we remind them. The fleets met in the shadow of a dying star, its red glow painting the battlefield like blood. The empire's dreadnoughts lined the void, their cannons blazing with light. Behind them stretched endless rows of cruisers, carriers, and frigates, an ocean of steel ready to swallow the humans whole. But the humans did not bow. Their small fleet surged forward, their ships darting like knives, their titans rising like mountains of fire. The first volleys lit the darkness, beams of white and red tearing through shields, explosions blossoming into suns. The void roared with battle. The Empire struck with overwhelming force, their cannons tearing through human frigates, each blast erasing dozens of lives. But the humans answered with fury, their smaller ships weaving between the giants, striking engines tearing through weak points, their tactics reckless, their sacrifices constant. One human captain turned his dying destroyer into a weapon, ramming straight into the belly of a dreadnought. The explosion split the alien ship in half, fire spilling into the void. The crew cheered even as their lives ended, their sacrifice lighting the fleet with courage. The Titans from Earth fought like gods, their ancient cannons unleashing storms of plasma, their shields absorbing the worst of the Empire's fire. One Titan locked against a dreadnought in a duel that shook the void, each blow like thunder, each strike tearing chunks of armor away. The humans watching cried out in awe, for their ancestors had left them more than ships. They had left them hope. The battle raged for hours, ships burning, debris spinning like deadly shrapnel. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, but they refused to fall. Every time a ship went down, another rose in its place, whispering the rule, whispering the fire. On the Empire's side, cracks began to show. Alien soldiers who had once laughed at humanity now trembled as reports filled their comms. Human fleet still advancing, casualties high. Cannot hold position. The whispers had reached them too, the words echoing in their minds. Back on the throne ship, the diplomat sat in chains, his lips bleeding but his smile unbroken. Guards brought him the sounds of the battle, the roars, the alarms, the fury. He leaned forward and whispered once more. The only rule that matters is humanity never stops. The Emperor, standing tall on his bridge, clenched his fists. His voice thundered through the comms. Crush them, erase them. No more whispers, but his commanders faltered, their soldiers shaken. For the harder they fought, the louder the whispers grew. Then it happened, something no one expected. From the edges of the battlefield came signals, alien ships not of the Empire but of other conquered species. Hesitant at first, then bold. They turned their guns not on the humans, but on the Empire, their voices crying across the comms. The rule is ours too, the rule belongs to all who suffer. The battlefield shifted, the galaxy itself turning against its master. One by one, species long enslaved joined the fight, their ships crude compared to the Empire, but their hearts burning with the same fire as the humans. Together they struck, together they roared. The young commander's voice broke through the chaos, steady and strong. We are not alone, we never were. Today is the day the galaxy learns the rule. The Emperor watched in fury as his perfect formation shattered, as allies turned traitor, as humans led the storm, his golden throne shaking beneath his feet for the first time in centuries. The Emperor knew fear, the void became fire. A war not of fleets but of survival. Humans leading the charge, their allies roaring beside them, every strike, every explosion carrying the same truth, the same fire. The same words whispered across the galaxy. The only rule that mattered had come alive. It was no longer a whisper. It was a storm. And the storm was unstoppable. The battle was not yet won. The humans still bled. Their ships still burned. But they had turned the tide. They had broken the illusion of the Empire's eternity. And now, for the first time in history, the galaxy rose together. Led by those who refused to fall, the Galaxy Empire thought humans were alone. But in that moment, in the shadow of the dying star, the universe itself joined their fight, and the Emperor, standing in silence, realized the truth. The rule was real, and it would consume everything he had built. The throne world of the Galaxy Empire burned, once a jewel of power and arrogance. Its skies now lit by fire, its space crowded with wreckage. The Emperor's fleet had been broken, his banners torn down, his soldiers scattered, yet still he stood upon his throne ship. Still he refused to bend across the battlefield. The human fleet gathered, scarred and battered, but alive. The young commander stood tall on the bridge of his cruiser, his voice steady even as alarms rang all around him. This is the moment, he said. The moment when whispers become law, when fear turns to fire. Today the galaxy learns the rule. The Titans risen from Earth's oceans floated beside him, their ancient hulls glowing, their cannons humming. Behind them came ships of other species, once slaves, now free. Their guns aimed not at each other, but at the Empire. The void thundered with the sound of unity. The Emperor roared from his throne. His voice carried across the comms to all. I am eternal, I am the rule, you are vermin. You will kneel or you will burn. His words shook with fury, but in his tone was fear. The diplomat, still in chains deep within the throne ship, lifted his head, his voice soft, yet it cut through every noise. No, Emperor, you are wrong. The only rule that matters is not yours. It is ours. The battle began. The final storm. The Emperor's throne ship unleashed its fury. Cannons firing beams that split the darkness, tearing through ships, turning hundreds into ash. The galaxy itself shook with the force, but the humans did not stop. Their fleet surged forward, small ships weaving between blasts, Titans absorbing fire, allies striking from every angle. The young commander's voice carried through the comms. Calm but burning. Push forward, do not break. Every strike brings us closer. Every life carries the rule. His words fueled not only humans, but every species that had joined them. Ships of 100 worlds roared as one. One Titan struck first, its ancient cannons unleashing a beam that cracked the throne ship's shields. The Emperor snarled, his claws tightening on his throne. Fools, he hissed, I will erase you. But the cracks widened. Every shot from the allied fleet breaking more of his armor. Inside the throne ship, chaos reigned, alarms blaring, corridors burning, soldiers fleeing. But still the diplomat sat calm. A guard ran past his cell, terrified. whispering the words under his breath without realizing. Only one rule. The diplomat smiled. The rule had already won. The young commander's cruiser took a direct hit, half the bridge collapsing, flames roaring, but he refused to fall. "We do not stop," he shouted, pulling himself up. Blood on his face, fire in his eyes. "Not until the throne itself is broken." The Allied fleets pressed harder. Wave after wave, every explosion tearing more of the Emperor's throne ship away. The once eternal symbol of power now cracked. Burning, drowning in fire, the Emperor rose, his voice echoing across the stars. "I am the galaxy, I am the law, no human, no slave. No whisper can defeat me," his words roared. But none believed them. The galaxy had already chosen its truth. The diplomat, weak but unbroken, was dragged into the throne chamber, chains clattering. The Emperor glared at him, fury in his eyes. "You did this," he spat, "your whispers." "Your lies." The diplomat looked up, calm even in the face of fire, and spoke softly. "Not lies. Emperor, truth, the only rule that matters. Humanity never stops." The chamber shook. The throne ship cracked as the Titans fired again, beams of white light piercing its heart, explosions ripping through its core. The Emperor roared in rage, leaping toward the diplomat. But before he could strike, the ship shuddered, fire spilling from the walls, the galaxy itself tearing his throne apart. The young commander's voice rang through the comms. "Now all ships, finish it." And the Allied fleets unleashed everything. Cannons, missiles, beams of pure fire. The throne ship was drowned in light. The explosion lit the void like a newborn star. The Emperor's ship torn apart, his golden throne shattered, his voice silenced. The Galaxy Empire's symbol of eternity erased in a single moment. Silence followed, long and heavy. Then a cheer rose from humans, from aliens, from every world that had suffered. The cheer of survival, the cheer of freedom, the cheer of a new dawn. The diplomat, pulled from the wreckage by Allied soldiers, stood weak but alive. He raised his head, his voice soft but steady. "The only rule that matters is survival. The only rule that matters is that we never stop. Humanity never stops." The words echoed not just in the fleet, but across the galaxy. The young commander stood on his battered bridge, his crew around him, his ship broken but alive. He looked at the stars, at the allies gathered, at the ruins of the Empire, and whispered, "We are free, not because we were stronger, but because we refused to end." Across the galaxy, the words spread, whispered on 1,000 worlds, spoken in 1,000 tongues. The rule had become more than a whisper, more than a weapon. It had become law, the law of survival, the law of humanity. The Galaxy Empire had thought themselves eternal. But eternity belonged not to thrones, not to empires, not to golden crowns. It belonged to those who never surrendered, those who never stopped, and so the galaxy entered a new age, an age written not in fear but in fire, and at the heart of it, a single truth carried forever in every voice. The only rule that matters is simple. Humanity always returns, humanity never stops.